Welcome to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast. And you're very welcome back to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast. I suppose fresh from our debut NFL podcast, we have Danny O'Brien and Simon Stokes back to review the AFC and NFC Divisional playoff games. Fair to say, gentlemen, it was a very exciting weekend had by all.
I think it's safe to say you picked a pretty good time to do the NFL segment of the podcast too, because just, wow, that's the only way you can describe what happened this weekend.
Oh, incredible. And Simon, yourself?
Yeah, sure. It was a deadly weekend from the first play of the first game on Saturday till the end of it on Sunday night. Sure, it was a fantastic weekend of sport. It's what you want in sport, really. All kind of emotions laid out there. All kinds of football. You know, we saw a great defensive playoff game in the second game, or two games really on Saturday night, and two monster offensive games on Sunday night. It was a fantastic weekend. Everything you'd want in the NFL you saw last weekend, basically.
Exactly. I suppose we can start down in chronological order. Nashville, pretty excited with the Tennessee Titans, the AFC number 1 seed, and Cincinnati Bengals came into town, and thanks to Mr. McPherson and Mr. Burrow, they got the 1916 win. What were your stand-up moments there, guys? Maybe we'll start with Danny first.
I think it was maybe the funniest moment of the weekend. It was the definition of the commentator's curse of Ryan Tannehill hasn't thrown an interception in on that first play. He throws, just Tannehill's intercept. I think the standout moment, because like you mentioned, Simon, and speaking as a former edge rusher here, I actually did play American football as a linebacker, and the only reason I was in that position is because I was fast, I could tackle, and I was angry. But just from the defensive standpoint, like both defenses really couldn't have done much more. I mean, how many was a Burrow, like he got sacked 9 times, and people were really worrying for his health as that game developed. So from the defensive standpoint, like, I mean, the Bengals, they were looking to go, yeah, they were lucky, because the one area of the Titans game that really did fall apart was quarterback. And like my standout defensive moment from the weekend was the Mike Hilton intercept, and the fact he was able to read to such a degree what Tannehill was going to do. And that was an enormous, like, the Titans had just bitten off a huge chunk of yardage as well with a good run, and it looks like you could even hear the crowd. It was all things are starting to turn for us, and then Hilton with that incredible intercept just kind of burst their bubble straight away. So like, I mean, with the quarterback situation with the Titans, like, they're going to have to sit back and reflect and go, well, where do we go from here? Because they're in serious trouble, because the quarterback is the one area in their team where they were struggling, and like that. And it's just, even like you mentioned, Simon, it's nuts how both days, the Saturday was a defensive clinic from nearly all 4 teams. The Sunday was an offensive clinic. So, but yeah, that game for the Titans, it is the quarterback. That's where they lost it.
Yeah, we were talking beforehand, and from what I know, I think the Titans are stuck in something like, they have something like 35 million of dead money next year on Tannehill. So he's not going anywhere. No one's going to pay that. So like, they're going to have to make do with him for at least another year. At that stage, you'd wonder, like, Bill Belichick isn't going to last forever in New England. Like, Vrabel has the New England bloodline going through him. Like, you'd wonder if he's been lined up. Now, saying that, you'd imagine Josh McDaniels is going to get that job. Like, he was on the plane a couple of years ago and they pulled him back. It was to Houston or somewhere he was going, and they pulled him back. So I suppose he's probably on a promise there. But like, you'd wonder, like, Vrabel probably only has another couple of years there. Just in that game, like, obviously it was a fairly defensive, it was a mammoth defensive game. I'd wonder, I actually thought about these 2 games on the Saturday night. Were there more games that were lost rather than won? Like, I think, like, I'm kind of reflecting a bit on the Bengals the last couple of days. In fairness now, look, they're after winning 2 games. They got 2 touchdowns the first day. One of them should have been chalked off. They got 1 touchdown the last day, and like, there was an exceptional Eli Apple play towards the end of the game that caused that last interception. Like, Eli Apple was a fellow that the Giants drafted first round, good few years back. He was kind of tossed around the league. I think he was with New Orleans for a while. But like, he made, like, that was an exceptional play at the end, just to get the hand in there, the ball flicks up, you make your interception. But I'm wondering, are the Bengals as legit as they seem to be? Like, look, in fairness, they're after coming through 2 tough enough games. Like, my one worry was towards the end of that last game, the last day, was I was just worried that somehow the Bengals were going to win. Burrow was going to get injured because, like I think this was one of the first things I said last night, that going forward the Bengals needed to figure some way of protecting him. Like to me, if Burrow is that franchise now, and if he goes down, they're in serious trouble. And like I'd be almost worried going into next weekend as well. Like obviously a few weeks ago, the Bengals beat the Chiefs a few weeks ago. I'm worried going into that game in a few weeks or next Sunday evening that somehow the Bengals will win this game with Burrow getting injured, and we'll have an absolutely brutal Super Bowl out of it. Like you can't leave your quarterback get hit 9 times. Like it was, he's not Superman. Just like on that game, as I said, I don't know, did the Titans kind of throw it away? Like some of the interceptions were cat altogether. Like you couldn't for a quarterback that's been paid that kind of cash, you couldn't explain some of the balls that he was throwing up. But like saying that, like look, they're there. My one other big question about that game, and I like Vrabel, he's obviously defensive minded, but the clock management at the end of that game was diabolical. Like they got that ball back. Was it about 140 or 150? Was it 142 or 43 in the clock?
That, yeah, Simon.
And, like he had a play or two made. He was like, to me, Tannehill is there's question marks over his quarterbacking, but like without really going too far up the field, there was 40 seconds left on the clock. All of a sudden, it went from a situation where Tannehill should have been passing the ball to the sideline and getting little, 5, 6, 7 yard plays, getting out, not losing clock in it, and worked himself up the field into a field goal position. It went into a situation that Vrabel basically was putting Tannehill in a situation that he had to make a play. Was he intercepted in the third down? I'm not sure. But to me, it was very, very poor clock management. And let's say Tampa Bay were obviously beaten the other night. And as I was saying the last night, I'm a Jets fan. And Todd Bowles is an outstanding defensive coordinator with Tampa Bay, but he was the head coach of the Jets a few years ago. And it was the one thing that was often said about him, that he was absolutely brutal at controlling the clock, and that there was games lost with his clock management and using timeouts foolishly and so on. I wonder, is it a bit of a weakness in Vrabel, to tell you the truth? Like I think he put needless pressure on Tannehill in that last phase of the game on Saturday night.
I would counter as well. Henry, the running back, he wasn't fully fit, guys, from the get-go. It was very, very quiet, wasn't he? 20 carries, 62 yards. I know he scores a touchdown, but I think Vrabel and the Titans would have expected a little bit more off the run game here. So maybe they had to change mid-game once they saw that Henry was very ineffective.
A lot of that to do, like, kind of when you're out for that long, just trying to get back into game fitness and in the playoffs too. But even like the big one thing, Mark, I respect, I'd have to say for the Bengals, well, like Burrow, he took the hits and he was still throwing. And I have to say, Jamar Chase, he's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Just when he gets the ball, it's not just that he gets it and he gets tackled. He gets the ball, he beats one guy. He's always making the game. He's always making extra yardage on top of it, and it proved crucial. And it happened throughout the weekends that the quarterbacks for the winning teams, they went to their go-to guys, and those go-to guys set up incredible finishes almost across the board. Yeah,
it's almost that analogy. If you have the quarterback in playoffs, you'll go that extra mile, won't you? And Burrow obviously was put under immense pressure off Tennessee Titans. Thought the rush defense was outstanding from minute one, but he's still 28 out of 37 completions, 348 yards. He was driving the guys down the field. Chase with 5 receptions, 109 yards. Higgins came up huge as well, 7 receptions, 96 yards, and then you have Usman as well, who has been very unsung, I thought, in this playoff run as well. Very strong as well, with the 7 receptions, 71 yards. So they were, creating. I thought Burrow was just immense. An awful lot of other quarterbacks would have just absolutely folded given the first quarter that they had, but they found a way. And then they had McPherson, the field goal kicker, was just lights out.
When Burrow, did you hear what Burrow said when he was walking on the field? Like, right, well, lads, looks like we're going to the AFC Championship. It's like, even Burrow just like the cojones on him just to go out and be like, it's all right, lads, I have this. We're on the way now. No need to worry. Like they do have that kind of swagger or that walk, and Burrow, it's kind of from the top down. Burrow's attitude, his approach to the game. It really, like, for a second-year quarterback to be doing it, it's and like, even I remember looking at, say, preseason rankings, like the Bengals were ranked 28th out of all teams. For them to be in the conference final is just, and that was their first ever road win in the playoffs. Like, it's been an incredible season for them.
Exactly. I saw on the Cincinnati Bengals, their pro shop, they tweeted during the week, I think, that they were sold out of McPherson jerseys and they wouldn't be getting any more in for the foreseeable future. That's what I was thinking about that game, the last day or two. Something that no one is making anything of. The first touchdown that the Titans got, they were lined up for the field goal and there was a flag, or for the extra point, there was a flag thrown. And they went for the 2-point conversion then because they were that bit closer and they were unsuccessful. Now I know hindsight and all is a great thing. That point would have made an awful difference to that game. Oh,
there was in playoff football, it's all like just take your points, going for the 2-point conversion. Like, I know more and more teams are going for 2-point conversions, but playoff football, every point's vital, and this weekend really proved it.
Yeah. I could kind of understand, like, he was at the 1 yard line. Henry was just after running a touchdown, but yeah, like, they scored an extra point there, and like they were perfectly happy taking their extra point until the flag was thrown. Again, hindsight is a great thing, but I'd wonder if they're kicking themselves now that they didn't just boot it over the bar.
Yeah, I think there's a massive opportunity lost by the Titans, really. They were in ideal field position a few times, as you said here, Simon and Danny, and coughing up the football pretty easy.
And being the number 1 seed.
Jesus, yeah. It's, for Mike Vrabel as well, you heard the press conference afterwards, there was an awful lot of Tannehill to blame. He said, no, collectively, we all have to blame as an organisation, which, it's like leading up to next season, as you say, with the salary cap and everything else, that he needs to support the quarterback. But I think there's going to be long reflections there in the Titans organisation. The Bengals go victorious. Let's switch on here, guys. The 49ers and the Packers.
I loved this game.
Dear God, I'm still baffled how the Packers actually lost this one, guys. But could you shed some light for me here?
Oh, if I was the Packers defense, I'd be looking at the other power element, the offense and the special teams. And I'm like, it's only the third time it's ever happened. A field goal's been blocked and a blocked punt for a return touch. Again, this was another example with similar with the Titans. The defense really couldn't have done much more, but it tells you, like, the unit of the weekend for me was the 49ers defense. They kept Aaron Rodgers out. Who would have thought that Rodgers wouldn't throw a single touchdown? He had the worst quarterback rating he's ever had. He had the worst overall performance that he has ever had. That just tells you as a unit how good the 49ers are. And like, the chat was going, imagine had at the time of drafting the Niners had gone for Rodgers. Like, imagine what that team would be like now. But I just started laughing at the Packers special teams. How, like, for one of those to happen is bad, but for both to happen and just for the team, like we mentioned, the Titans are going to be thinking a lot. This is a cataclysm for the Packers because you can hear the rumble of bulldozers in the background because the cap hit for the Titans is bad. The Packers is 40+ million over the cap, and they have 20-something plus free agents, and Rodgers doesn't want to be around for a rebuild, and it's a cataclysm for them.
I thought, Mark, you were saying there that Vrabel was, all in and, we'll all take responsibility after their match. I know it's fairly cold directly after a match, and his head mightn't really have been in it, but Rodgers fairly threw the special teams under the bus with his after match interviews.
Well,
he basically put it on him, but they were brutal. Then he made a good point about the 49ers defense, but like the Packers basically kept the 49ers to 2 field goals. Like the special teams coughed up the touchdown. Like Jimmy Garoppolo, I don't know. You probably have the stat. You might have the stats there, Mark. I'm worried. I'm actually very worried that there could be 2 fairly one-sided championship finals this weekend. Like, Garoppolo isn't moving the ball. The only hope, obviously, is with San Francisco that the defensive side of things will do the business. Like, they're after keeping the Packers to 10 points. The week before, they kept Dallas to 17 points. This is probably the 49ers unit is probably as good as what's left in it anyway, from a defensive viewpoint. But will they do enough to keep the Rams, who looked pretty good last Sunday? Will they do enough to keep them keep them at bay. Now I know they had the 2 games against them in regular season. They kept them very quiet the first day, but like Odell Beckham was only in the door at that stage. You'd wonder, like, in a proper playoff game in SoFi Stadium, you'd wonder, like, will they be able to keep the Rams out? I'd be doubtful.
Yeah, I know everything is stacked against them, but everything was stacked against them when they played the Cowboys and when they played the Packers. So, but I totally see where you're coming from, Simon. Like, they're going up against a Rams team who should have stomped the Bucs as well on Sunday.
Yeah, like, the stats are not great for Jimmy Garoppolo here, are they? I mean, he does complete 11 out of 19 passes, 131 yards, but it's that intercept again. It's the party piece. It's, protect the football. I mean, you have Mitchell, you have Samuel there, absolute beasts with ball and, ball carriers. And he gives the onus back to Green Bay. I mean, Green Bay, I think the supporters after the early touchdown must have thought they're in for an absolute massacre of a victory here, because Jimmy wasn't doing anything behind the line of scrimmage. It was very inept. I mean, Kittle, Samuel did deliver a bit on the wide receiver, but again, there was some penalties, stuff like that. It was just, Jimmy is just literally, he's just exposed right now, from the quarterback perspective. Now, to go back to your point in terms of the LA Rams, San Fran, the 49ers have beaten the Rams both times in regular season. So there is maybe a shred of hope there for the 49ers, but again, the quarterback has to really step up to the plate here. I mean, 131 yards is not going to cut it next weekend for an NFC Championship game.
Definitely not. And even though they beat the Rams twice, I think Cooper Kupp he'd over 100 yards the 2 nights they played him. Like, he's going to do the business against that defense. He'll find some way of doing it. And like, as I said, in the first game they played the Rams earlier on in the season, like, Odell Beckham was only in the door. He has become a prominent part. Like, it's gas to I don't think he had a touchdown all year with Cleveland, and has he 6 or 7 now since he came to the Rams. He's doing a bit of everything. I think the Packers. It's hard to understand. I thought the Packers were going to win it this year, to be honest.
We all did.
Cold weather up there, the idea of teams having to go up there. I just thought they were going to win it. They were getting healthy at the right time. It's just one of these freak results that can happen from time to time. It's interesting. Rodgers know what he'll do. As you were saying, Danny, he has said that he wants to stay around for a rebuild, and you wouldn't blame him. He's only a year or 2 left. I've seen 1 or 2 interviews he's done since the weekend. I'm kind of siding that this fella could walk out the door and just retire. He has his Super Bowl ring. Like, where's he going to go? I said last week that Denver was a possibility for Russell Wilson. To me, that's about the only roster that Rodgers could probably go into and have a chance of winning next year. Like, he'll only have another year to win him. Where else is he going to fly into that have money to pay him and so on? No, the only thing is, someone like the Bucs are going to be could be in an awkward enough situation next year. Saying that, they have a lot of players to play there, But to me, I think Rodgers could retire. I can't see him going back to Green Bay and being thrown like he's spent his last 10 years thrown to fairly dodgy receivers. His best receiver it's like, with the amount of money they're under or they're under pressure with, it's hard to see them franchise tagging Devontae Adams. Like, it'll cost them a lot of money, I'd say Rodgers could retire.
Yeah, so like if he was to go somewhere, I think it could be a Manning 2.0. He could go to, like, Denver looks like it is the most realistic destination for him. If he was to retire, I mean, there would be people who'd be surprised, but like, one thing that's even been highlighted, you could say, with the Packers for the last decade, how many times have they been in this scenario or in these big situations, be it, say, in like where they've had the home advantage and everything, and they've snatched defeat from the jaws of victory so many times. And even for Rodgers, that's the 5th time he's been beaten with the last play of the game as too. Like, it's like people were talking about the kind of how does this damage his legacy, and he's like, he's one of the all-time great quarterbacks, but when it comes to the elite tier, like, they're just going to say when it came to those he has a Super Bowl ring, but he just has one. I mean, Tom Brady has the same number as him, and he was in the AFC for only 2 years, so there is that side of things. Like if he wants to kind of cement his legacy in that status, he might go to Denver from that perspective. But my God, Green Bay is just an example of how you throw similarly to when you were chatting, I have absolutely no idea how the hell they lost that game. I mean, for the number of things that could have gone wrong, like even the snow starting to fall seemed to hamper them too. That was a day they needed the weather to be some way decent, and if it was, I mean, it actually favored the Niners playing that running game. I think that's the one area the Niners could get the advantage over the Rams, because it was definitely on Sunday when it came to the Bucs. That was the one area where the Bucs really were able to take advantage of the Rams. But with it being in LA, I mean, it'd be hilarious if the Niners were to make the Super Bowl, but it'd be similar. I kind of hope they don't, because it could be a really one-sided Super Bowl if they do.
Well, Danny, just on the comparisons there with Brady. Do you know, I don't know, it's a bit unfair. Like, do you know, I don't know how many times Brady has won Super Bowls with top 10 defenses. I wouldn't say Rodgers has ever, or has had a top 10 defense in the last number of years anyway. I wouldn't think Green Bay were in that kind of position. Do you know, and as well as that, you know, Rodgers has had to get paid. Brady has had someone else bringing in the bacon at home and has been able to pay big offensive linesmen to open holes for him for a few years as well.
Well, I mean, that's true, but I suppose at the same time, that's kind of with Brady. He was willing to sacrifice that extra bit of money to get the right players in. I mean,
it's very easy to sacrifice as Danny when herself is worth millions and millions.
True, but I mean, if anything, it's going to, like, over the next couple of years with the salaries that the quarterbacks are getting, like, that's, I mean, it's happening with Tennessee already, and with Green Bay if they want to keep him there, it's going to just impact franchises as a whole. I don't know what you're highlighting and saying as well, but even like on Sunday with what Brady was doing, Brady nearly pulled out, and like I was looking at that going, oh, they're done. And he almost again, and I know I was linking with the Jets thing, but he almost did it again. I mean, how many times has he done it in those pressure situations where he has led the Patriots or the Bucs out of those crucial? Like, he went to Lambeau last year, he did it. Like, you're comparing Brady to Rodgers, like when it comes to those crucial scenarios, those crucial moments, those fourth quarters, I mean, there's no real comparison between the two of them.
Yeah. Big defensive play for Tampa Bay though again last weekend, Danny.
Oh yeah. I mean, in Ndamukong Suh, he came out. I mean, my God, the Rams almost they nearly did a Niners on it from the previous week. They nearly screwed it up, but it just added, my God, the drama of all those games. They were incredibly dramatic, and nearly every single one of them was for totally different reasons. But like the Rams, it shouldn't have been. The Bucs should not have been in a position to even be able to level the game, because for 3 quarters the Rams played nearly perfect.
Mm-hmm. It was flawless football, wasn't it, from the Rams from minute one. I mean, offensive line wise for Tampa Bay, they did have a few injuries. It certainly did show early doors, because the Rams' defensive line really was impressive. Like, they really put the pressure on Brady. I know Brady had 30 completions out of 54, 329 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But for a good chunk of the 3 quarters, he was under pressure in the pocket to get that ball out. So, it's LA again, isn't it? Creating the script, the drama, you know, the fumbles, you know, the intercepts, stuff like that. They have the blasé plays, you know, likes of Odell Beckham Jr. And the Cup as well was absolutely immense at various times. But he coughed up the ball as well late. So, I mean, 27-3, you'd think the game should be well and truly closed out. But, you know, fairness to Tampa Bay defensively, they did actually put a few stops in the fourth quarter to get the ball.
I wonder, Mark, is it the fright that the Rams needed? You know, like they got out of jail the last day. They saved my bacon, because I think they were the only one I got right out of my 4. Like, I don't know, was it the fright they needed? Like, if they play complete football for the first 2 or 3 quarters, there is correct. Like, you know, it seemed to be clicking everything, and I don't know, did they panic a little bit? Like, you know, this is, I wonder how many of that roster were around when they lost the Super Bowl. Do you know, they lost the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, the 17th Super Bowl. Like, you know, it looked like it was going the wrong way for them. But like that, Cooper Kupp's 2 plays bring it down the field, and like I was listening to Bruce Arians there today, and he was asked about the fact that they left Kupp on a safety for that big long reception that he had finishing up. But he said it was all the one anyway. They only needed, he reckoned they only needed 12 yards. So he said they could have thrown anything they wanted at them. They were going after the quarterback. And that's the way that they were lined up. And he said, look, he goes, we had to take our chance. It just happened that the Cup made his big play out of it. But yeah, I like the Rams. As I said last week, I like Stafford. I think he's tough. You know, when he was in Detroit, he took a lot of flack. He's playing with a lot, less talented players than what he's playing with now. Even on I suppose, a personal basis, even like I think his wife had a knockout there a few years ago. She was fairly sick, and like he was, he kept playing, and it didn't affect his game or any of that kind of thing. I like the Rams. I give them every chance, and like it's not often that a team is lined up that they maybe even Tampa Bay last year had to go up to Lambeau, I think, in the championship weekend. But it's not often that a team have an opportunity to be at home for the championship round and at home for the Super Bowl. So look, they've every chance now, and they've when they drew up their plan probably at the start of the year, they would have been very happy to be in this position now.
And being able to add Beckham, but also Von Miller on the defense, he made one or two crucial stops and crucial plays.
Yes, very good.
I mean, that stadium was very quiet for 3 quarters, and it only really took off when Ndamukong Suh got the turnover that got them back to it, that led up to the being able to level as well. But even with the Buccaneers, like we were chatting about the Titans, we've chatted about the Packers as well. But the Buccaneers, like if he's putting out the word that he could potentially be retiring, and Bruce Arians has also said if he's going, like Bruce, he's kind of gone, if he's gone, I'm gone. And like if Brady leaves and Arians leaves, like that team there, you could hear bulldozers in the background again for them, because they're like, if Brady's gone, a lot of those players who were there, they only went there because of him. And if he goes, Arians goes, they could be losing some of the coordinators as well. So Tampa Bay could be in. I mean, it's nuts how things can change so quickly from being Super Bowl winners looking to back to where they could be actually looking at a very uncertain couple of months. With will Brady stay? Will he not? When you mentioned about his wife, he's saying, well, she kind of wants me to give up now because I'm nearly 45 and I've been taking so many hits. And it's the first time he's really aired that this could actually be it for him. But the Bucs have a lot. There's so many teams that have so many question marks going over them going into the offseason. But there with the Bucs, we could be seeing the end of what's been a pretty good team.
Yeah, and you're on the ball, Danny. Like, there was a lot of players that went there to win their Super Bowl ring. Leonard Fournette took a serious wage cut to go in there. And like, when healthy, he's a quality running back.
Yeah.
Chris Godwin is going to hit free agency. They're not going to pay a wide receiver, so he's going to hit free agency. Pierre-Paul won his second Super Bowl. Probably happy with his lot, would move on from there. I know, let's say you were mentioning the coordinators, like you'd imagine Leftwich is probably going to, he's probably fairly close to head coaching job at this stage. Saying that, like, often with these really good head coaches like Arians, how much of an authority he has over the offense at Tampa Bay it's possibly questionable. But he's still probably he's definitely going to get head coaching interviews this off season. I know Tampa went out and drafted quarterback last year. But it was in the second or the third round. They took Kyle Trask out of Florida, and like, I don't know if it's a long-term plan. As I said last week, I'd watched with the college ball, and I don't know, did you see him in college, Danny? He was, I suppose, he came to kind of prominence because Kyle Pitts was at Florida, who's an absolute monster for their offense. And Kyle Trask, like, he's a bit undersized. I think he never started in high school. Came into Florida. Their starter got injured. I don't think he started before.
He must have come in and that's like Florida Gators. That's a school where it's like you're not getting that position or you're not getting it unless you have the skill for it, because it's one of the. I mean, historically at least, they are one of the top colleges.
Your man that he replaced, his name escapes me now, but he was drafted last year as well. He ended up, so he got injured the second last year, so Trask got in, and your man knew that he wouldn't get back in for the final year in college, so your man went transferred to somewhere else, and he's actually got drafted by Atlanta, I think. So his name escapes me now. But anyway, Trask, I don't know, like he's not going to be the long-term plan there. Now, I know he'll have had a year now sitting behind Brady, but to me, he seems just a small bit on the lower size. I don't think he'll work out as an NFL quarterback, and particularly when you're talking about a fella that pretty much didn't start till his final year in college at any level. Your man there with Miami was ahead of him in high school.
From the Bailoa?
No. Your man in college in
Oh, right.
Was ahead of him in high school, and then he went into college, and he had this guy in front of him, bar an injury, wouldn't have got in. So I don't know if Tampa Bay, I don't know, it was the second or third round draft pick they took on him last year. To me, I'd be inclined to think that Tampa Bay could be facing. Look, they have their Super Bowl a bit like the Rams. The Rams are after selling up shop if they don't win it this year. God only knows what happens to them. But I'd say Tampa Bay could become a fairly dour spot very, very soon.
Which is where they normally have been, so.
Yeah, in the NFC South. And I mean, I think you could add Gronkowski to that as well if Brady decides I'm out of here. Gronkowski and Brady being the good mates they are, sure. Gronkowski might go back into WWE or do something left field again, So, but yeah, I completely agree with you there, guys. But yeah, I know it's a fair play to the Rams anyway. That last play was just exquisite, really, and they move on to the NFC Championship game. And last but not least, guys, Arrowhead. Who wants to kick off here?
We've left the best till last. I just watched even the last 2 minutes of this again. I mean, I've never felt so sorry for a losing quarterback because Josh Allen played the perfect postseason. He was he could I didn't realize he was such a good rusher or such a good runner. This was if they wanted him, and everybody I've been hearing and been chatting about this, they said this was quite possibly the best game they've ever seen. Those last 2 minutes. I mean, this is why people watch American football, the sheer and utter drama. And I feel sorry for people who, if this was their first game, because the bad news, it's only ways down from here because it was just, the Mahomes, Allen, they're looking like people are hoping, praying it's going to be Brady, Manning again, that rivalry there. Like this was it's just incredible. It was just absolutely unbelievable the way that the tit for tat, the amount of change of scores at the end, the sheer and utter drama of it, and even commentators, no matter the language. And you may have heard the NFL, they put out a video and it was here's the commentary in Spanish, here's it in the German one's great, here's it in German, here's it in Brazilian, here's it in they did it from all over the world, as games go and as kind of advertisements for we didn't think you could get more dramatic than the previous 3 games. This one, it was just hold my beer because this had absolutely everything that you would want from a playoff game.
Absolutely. So
I'd agree. It was a fantastic game. When we were talking about Mike McCarthy last week and not going for it in fourth down, I thought Buffalo set the tone from the first drive, going for it in fourth down a couple of times, getting their touchdown. It meant straight away that Kansas had to go up and answer them. I thought it was a fantastic game. Two things that often, and I said it before or earlier on about hindsight, but two things that kind of stuck out in my head, reflecting on the game after. I can't understand why Buffalo kicked that ball dead, the last kickoff with 30. I know there was only small time left in the clock, but I cannot understand why they kicked it out in the zone. You were giving Mahomes back the ball on the 25-yard line with timeouts. If they had hooshed that kick and made the boys run out with it, they're losing 7 or 8 seconds straight away. Do you know? To me, it didn't make sense. Even watching it at the time that they kicked it, Mahomes, 13 seconds and timeouts, you're giving the men too much time. That was one thing I couldn't understand. And even then, they defended the sides. So they let Kelsey go down the middle for that last reception, lining up the field goal. Now, look, I know you still have to make the play, but I heard there the NFL, I saw somewhere on Twitter that they took the audio and they actually zoomed audio. Mahomes audio, and literally Mahomes is seeing what's in front of him, and he's rolling a Kelsey, go for it. So basically, he knew I'm going to throw it to him. He's going to run. No one's going to tackle him, line up a handy field goal. So I just, for a team that are kind of built on being one of the top 5 defenses in the league, I just thought there was a couple of strange decisions there that the Bills are probably ruining now. The other thing that came to my head, and I know the league owners were canvassed a few years ago on this after that great Chiefs New England game. Do you know that great when New England won that playoff game or that divisional final a few years ago? The overtime rules, lads. What do you make of them? Is it unfair?
Personally, I would like to see Buffalo come back and try to respond, but it was just an outrageously good play. I thought from Mahomes again to Kelsey. I thought it was a touchdown fitting to win every game, but given the way Josh Allen had been going with Buffalo, it would be nice to see Buffalo get the ball again and see if they could get the touchdown. But yeah, I'd say we could have been there all night, to be perfectly fair, Simon. Given the way Josh Allen was executing.
What do you think, Danny?
I think it was even Bill Cowher said the team that wins this will be the one who's the last team in possession, and that's the way it proved. It has been one of the it's been, apart from how incredible this game was, it has been the main talking point. Do they need to change these rules? But the problem you then kind of have is, like, is this something that'll only apply to, say, off season or say post season, or are they also going to apply it to other times during the season too? Because you want the overtime to be over as quickly as possible, just in terms of injuries. It's one that's going to be eternally up for debate, because like if they change the overtime rules and if this happens in the regular season, does that mean these games are going to just go? People wanted this game to go on and on, but in the regular season, you want the games to be over as quickly as possible. Just from that standpoint, you would have loved to have seen Allen go back on the field. And what I found really good, or what was really incredible as well, is Allen and Mahomes, their duel. They brought such different variety to it. Like Allen's throws were just bullets, but Mahomes' sidearm throw, I've never, it's incredible just to watch it and the way that they were able to evade getting tackled in that. This game did have everything, but yeah, I think maybe it's in the postseason they could have a case of in overtime, if one team scores, then the other can go. But then, like you highlighted, Mark, we'd probably still be watching them now, because that's the standard the quarterbacks were playing at on the night.
And Danny, I think we've missed one important point. It's US TV as well.
Yeah, that's it. I'd say
that US mentality of the game having to finish at a particular time because they have their CBS or Fox News premieres or something like that straight after. They have their strict time zone specific Eastern Standard. There seems to be a bit of media pressure, I think, there as well, because I'd say the NFL would be more than happy to, and the owners probably have more than happy to kind of have that sort of.
Let's say I don't know if the college system would work either. Like the college system, I don't think the college system is football really. I don't know it, Mark, but basically they both start out from the 25-yard line and they get to go. And then if they're both successful, I think after the first round of them being both successful, they basically it's a 2-point conversion. They both have a go at a 2-point conversion. And if they're both successful, you go again and you go again and you go again. But to me, Kansas got the ball, so. Like the way the game had unfolded, right? It was basically going to be whoever wins the coin toss is probably going to win it. And you'd wonder, right? Kansas get the ball, they start as usual on 25-yard line, come up field, get a touchdown. Like, what would be? There wouldn't be a major issue for Kansas to kick the ball back to Buffalo and leave them have a go at it. Now saying that, look, it's a team sport. People will say if your defense can make a stop, you get the ball back, and that's the beauty of it. And didn't get a chance to come back out and answer Mahomes like Mahomes had his chance to answer during the game.
Yeah, just pros and cons to both those arguments, really, to be fair. But yeah, I think in fairness to Josh Allen and Mahomes, it does look like an absolute long renewed rivalry, doesn't it? Yeah, really. And it's bad news from a New England Patriots fan here that Allen is only just going to get better and better and better, and that is a very young roster in the Buffalo Bills as well. And I can see them, I think, Simon, our work's going to get cut out, particularly New York Jets and the Pats and Miami Dolphins to get anywhere near the Bills. Now, the only thing I would say about Josh Allen is his running style. Whenever he runs with football, I'm heart and mouth every time, because he's so full-blooded and he's running carries. When you compare it to Mahomes, who's very much the ingenuity, he realises when to kind of slide, kill the play.
The first
it's almost like your Gavin Coombs of Munster Rugby, literally barreling towards, contact. Like you just wonder with Buffalo, next season or season, he may go down with an injury here, given his running style. I mean, I think he ran for 67 yards on Sunday night. Like they were very hard-earned yards as well. So,
I watched it, Mark, was that breakout year that RG3 had a fantastic year in Washington, and. Like for a finish up, like that was an unbelievable rookie campaign, and for a finish up, what happened there, and like he's basically was destroyed before he even got started with the injuries. Now saying that he was a much slighter man than what Josh Allen is, Eventually, if you're going to have your running back and your quarterback generally being the same person, it's probably not going to end up well, because running backs, most of them don't have a great lifespan.
2-3 years at the most, and then that's it. So
yeah.
I often think, Danny, and when teams are drafting, I often think this is a waste of a first-round pick when they go out and get the really good. Let's say the Giants a few years ago took Saquon Barkley, who's
or the Steelers.
You'd wonder, is this sustainable? Are you better off getting the big fella to block for a second or a third round pick? But look, I suppose that's only all talk, really.
Indeed. But no, it was a game for the ages, and probably can't wait to see the Chiefs and Bills next season anyway with the schedule. But the Chiefs advanced to the AFC Championship. And I suppose, guys, maybe have a little quick preview of the AFC Championship and the NFC Championship games. I suppose heading the block time, guys. Bengals going to the Chiefs and 49ers travelling to LA to see the Rams and play them for that. Who do you fancy?
Chiefs, Rams, and it's interesting, even the amount of road game wins that there was at the weekend. But even I was chatting with someone during the weekend, they said Arrowhead is one of the few stadiums that actually is a road game. It's not under a roof. There's no there's none of these things that kind of that levels the playing field. Going to Kansas City is a road game. The atmosphere, just the altitude, everything is against them. And kind of, I know the Bengals bet them a couple of weeks back, but this Chiefs team, it's a bit of a different animal, and Mahomes in postseason. The fact is, their fourth AFC in a row. They're going for their third and fourth Super Bowls. Everything stacked against the Bengals, and I think just with that other fact as well, the fact that it is in Kansas City, I think it's set up for the Chiefs to make it from that side. And from the NFC side, if I'm hoping for a good Super Bowl, I'm hoping that it's the Rams, because if it's the 49ers, it's going to be like the Rams Patriots a couple of years ago. It's going to be stale. But yeah, I think just from a neutral standpoint, a Rams Chiefs Super Bowl would be a great watch.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree with you, Danny. Realistically, as I said, look, the 49ers are after beating the Rams twice in the regular season. But the Rams look like a different animal now. They have their offense going, like I said last week, that the Rams wanted to run the ball. They threw it up there a good bit last weekend. But the outstanding feature of that Rams team last weekend, I think, was on the defense side of things for the first three quarters. I think Von Miller and Donald are going to get after Garoppolo. Now, saying that, if 49ers are going to game plan here, they're going to just hand the ball off. Garoppolo only threw was it 19 attempts, you said, Mark, last weekend. He'll probably make less next weekend. They're probably going to try and stink this out, run it, give it to Debo, hope for the best, and look, they've pulled off. They've been outsiders last 2 weekends, 1-2 away games. There's no reason, Danny, you were talking there about Kansas being a really away game. In the grand scheme of things, I think it's the 49ers to the Rams is only 5 or 6 hours of a drive. This is pretty much a cross-city rivalry almost, from the point of view of American sports. I think the Rams win. I think they'll cover the handicap. But at the same time, look, the 49ers might have some chance. It's part of me would almost think with the 49ers, with the best possible thing for them to happen would be Garoppolo to go down in the first 5 minutes and let's Trey Lance rip it. No,
it's funny. The Niners run is reminding me a lot of, speaking from a Steelers standpoint, of the 06 run. They had all the road games against all the top teams, and they just gritted it out, and they ran, and the quarterback didn't do very well, and they just managed to make it 2 and win a Super Bowl. So it's eerie, the parallels there, but the fact it's thin, the Rams are at home. It's LA. It's going to be perfect conditions for them. They have the motivation of the Super Bowl also being there. A lot is stacked against the Niners. But yeah, if they did win, I would laugh. But just from a neutral standpoint, looking for the best Super Bowl possible, I really do hope it's a Chiefs-Rams Super Bowl.
I think the Chiefs will cover. I think they'll cover the spread as well in the against Cincinnati. As I said, I'm not entirely sure Cincinnati are legit. And I'll go over to the church here in Tullis on Sunday morning, and I light a candle, and hopefully Joe Burrow might be able to play again next year.
Oh my God, yeah. I'd probably go along with the Chiefs, but I think, guys, Bengals may run this a bit more closer than you're thinking. Just the euphoria of that Bills win. I'm watching a bit of ESPN. I'm watching a bit of the local coverage in Kansas. I think their focus is not even on the Bengals now. I think it's Super Bowl. They're looking at the Rams
Oof,
49ers for
they're in
me.
trouble then if that's the case.
Yeah, there is an awful lot of kind of euphoria from it, and that performance, there is going to be a dip in performance here for Mahomes and the rest of them. I think they'll get the job done, but I think Burrow and Chase, I think they may pose a few problems here for that Kansas City secondary, because let's be real about this, guys. Josh Allen literally exposed massive fundamental issues in communication in that secondary, particularly in the fourth quarter. I mean, on another day, I mean, this is Buffalo Bills, though. Buffalo is jinxed as a city. Sporting wise, they're jinxed after 13 seconds, bloody hell, but of the last weekend. But going beside the point, Allen has exposed an awful lot of fundamental issues here in that secondary, and I think with Burrow, but again, the offensive line is a massive heart attack waiting to happen for Burrow. Whether he gets the time in the pocket to expose that is another thing. I think the Chiefs will win, but I think it might be maybe a 7 to 10 point going away, more so than just absolutely blowing Cincinnati out of the water. And then for the other one, I think for San Fran, if Jim Garoppolo doesn't pass the ball less than 10 times, I think it will be literally run the game, run the ball, keep the LA Ram defensively on the pitch.
Have him do what the Pats did against the Bills. Like, right, you're going to throw it 3 times, only 3, and they're going to be side shuffles for like on 3rd and 1.
Or if you're in trouble and you're going to get sacked, you're going to throw that into row H or whatever, and maybe take a penalty for it. But I think do like the Rams. From their performance in Arizona Cardinals, they've backed it up here in Buccaneers. And again, we haven't seen the full complete game from the Rams, And God, lads, if you're in the Rams roster and support, like, you're 2 games away from winning the Super Bowl. You have them both at home. Like, it's massive. And that does carry a bit of pressure, and nothing better than an NFC West rival to come in and absolutely wipe the floor of you. I think it'll be tight, but I think Rams may win it. And I think there might be a bit of drama there, just classic LA, script writing, Hollywood. There's going to be a few fumbles, from LA. They may be 10, 14 points up, and then they'll give a chance.
2 blocked punts per return touchdowns.
Yeah, so I would hope for Chiefs Rams as well, guys. But I think they're
do you know one fella, I was looking at this earlier on, Mark. Do you know one fella who hasn't had a major impact for Cincinnati in the playoffs so far, but I have a lot of time from his Tyler Boyd. Do you know, let's say you mentioned T. Higgins earlier on, which was a great compliment for Chase. But I wonder, I think, like, you're dead right there. Let's say Buffalo opened up holes in that Chiefs secondary last week. If they're going to keep it close, they'll probably try to double team Chase. Higgins will probably get some coverage as well. I think Tyler Boyd could open up. Do you know, if a fella wanted to have an out betting an anytime touchdown score or something like that, I think you could go a lot further wrong now than throwing a 5 on Tyler Boyd.
Yeah, indeed. And I think you have to give compliment to Tennessee Titans. I thought defensively, they're absolutely.
They couldn't have done much more.
Couldn't have done much more, as you said, Danny. And I think, will we see the same intensity for Kansas City? We probably will. But I think Cincinnati Bengals offensive line, they've been absolutely given the come down of come downs in that video analysis, how they didn't protect Joe Burrow for a vast majority of that game. So
did absolutely no edge protection for the whole game. It was insane. But sure, as I said, hopefully he'll keep standing anyway through this weekend.
We need him long term, but says Danny O'Brien, maybe not. It's Pittsburgh Steelers fan, you kind of.
But even looking at the AFC as a whole, like there's between Allen, between Mahomes, you have Burrow, you have Jackson, you've like a string of just these young quarterbacks coming through, and it's just shown if you want to do anything in that conference, you need to have that position sewn up. And like when I was hearing about Mason Rudolph saying, I want to be first choice, I'm like, no, we do not want you as first. God, anybody but him. Like it shows how important it is that if you are in a position where there's questions around quarterback, you need to solve it very quickly because there's so many good ones out there at the moment.
Exactly. And I suppose before we go, guys, the news in New Orleans that there's a head coach vacancy. Sean Payton stepping away after 15 seasons. What are your initial reactions there? And I know, Simon, you've been kind of banding around a few kind of maybe offensive coaches, maybe looking at that job, I'd say.
I think it's an absolutely dire situation in New Orleans now. He's after leaving them with he had another year in the contract. He's after walking away from it. He's after leaving them with 43 million of dead money, as far as I can see, for next year. So they're over the cap, 43 million. So whoever's coming in there is going to have to figure a way to work around that. He's after leaving them with no quarterback. He's after leaving them, like, why in the name of God did he extend Taysom Hill mid-season and leave him with Taysom Hill with that? Like, there was no, like, he was already contracted. There was no need to give him more money. Leave him mid-season. If he had this and he said that he might leave at the end of the season himself, like, I'd say he must have had some arrangement with Taysom Hill that he'd give him a few quid in the back end, because it makes no sense to have leaving the franchise behind with a player. I think that contract could be worked up to 95 million over 4 years, dependent on where he's playing and all this kind of crack. It's absolutely mental. I was watching Chuck Pagano a few weeks ago. During he used to be the Colts head coach.
Oh yeah.
And he was doing an interview, and the topic came up. They were talking about the New York Giants, and the topic came up like, are they going to be able to even find someone that wanted to be the head coach there? And Pagano made a good point. He said, look, there's only 32 franchises in the league. There's only going to be 32 head coaches next year. People know the situations that they're getting into, but it's almost like an ego thing that they'll want to be one of those head coaches. But geez, I don't know, like, you can add the New Orleans Saints to a team that, like, if I was left with in Tampa Bay, and if that job came calling, I don't know, would I be too inclined to throw my name forward for it? Like, I think they're going to be a mess for a long time. But from what I've been reading before Payton came into New Orleans, they were a bit of a mess anyway for their pretty much.
Historically, they were like the fans with bags over their heads. And was it watching ESPN today, and it was like they weren't the Saints, they were the Aints. Because they were just and like, but like Peyton, between him and Drew Brees, like it was the perfect combination between them. Like when Hurricane Katrina and what happened to the city, then everything just it came together perfectly for them to win that Super Bowl. And kind of Saints fans really can't complain for those 15 years. But even when it comes to Peyton, like, if I'm Jerry Jones, I'm giving the Saints just a blank check and saying, write what you want for compensation. We'll take him on board, because, like, the Cowboys, they have absolutely everything they need to win a Super Bowl except the head coach.
It makes too much sense, Danny. In my head, I think McCarthy has another year. So I think Payton will sit out for his year, because it wouldn't be a nice thing to do to go from one team to another team in the NFC. And I think it's a cert. He has the ego for that job. He has. This is a fella that went for an onside kick at the start of the second half of the Super Bowl. This is a fella now that is going to go in there. You can imagine Jerry Jones just salivating at the top of this fella over the offense. I think it is, like, it probably won't happen this year, because there will be money involved and stuff like that. No money means nothing to them, but it probably won't happen this year. But I would say it is a cert that Payton is going to be the head coach of the Cowboys next year.
Yep. No, it's almost like it's inevitable, and just we like you mentioned there. Although I think it would be so much fun if they had, like, when they did the behind the scenes of the teams. I wish they would have it for that season, just to see Peyton and Jerry Jones clash, because like Jerry Jones is it's his way or the highway. But if he does go to the Cowboys, that I think that nearly automatically means the one problem area they've had for years has been coach. They sort that out, and I mean, look what Arians did with the Buccaneers. Like, you get the right person coaching a team, it can be that small final fraction they need to get over the edge. Like, I mean, how many ways can the Cowboys screw up winning in the playoffs? There's only so many ways they can do it, but like, it's inevitable that he does go to the Cowboys, which is going to suck for the rest of us, because the Cowboys fans are bad enough as it is, and if he goes there, they'll be like, just give us the trophy now, because we're going to win it. And oh God,
I think Payton.
It's all right.
I think Payton has some kind of connection with the Bears as well. Did he play with the Bears? I think there's some connection there.
The Bears would probably be the last, like, just even.
He won't go there. He won't go there.
Since Nagy's even been like, I've gone through articles, and they've just said with the Bears, they've never been able to combine. They've never been able to sync up quarterback, GM, and head coach. There's always been something that's been out of sync, and as a result, they've always, the Bears will be the Bears. They'll look like they're going to get close, and like, even if you're a quarterback going to the Windy City, like, there's a reason there's never been an all-time quarterback there as well. So yeah, the Bears would be probably alongside the Lions as the last team you'd want to go and take charge of, because there's always something wrong with them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think Payton definitely would relish the cowboy role. His head coaches have gone in there and have been completely swallowed up by the cowboy culture, and then definitely Jerry Jones as well, being in their ear constantly about how the game plan should be executed. It's just, but can you imagine press conferences in Dallas Cowboys next season? Mike McCarthy. So, Sean Payton's, round. Yeah. Can you comment on it from week one on? I'd say he'll absolutely flip. I'd say he'll literally give a media blackout, I would say, because that's what's going to be the key story here, because he looks like the guy, as you say, ticking all the boxes. Jerry Jones looking to get to the top again. So, yeah, all for down.
He might encourage Brady to play for another year if the Saints are in just a complete dump next year. That'll be another handy walk through that division, I don't know. I think New Orleans are in for a bit like what Tampa Bay will be like when all those players move on. I'd say they're in for a tough enough couple of years in front of them now.
I suspect with Brady, he may hang on for the last season next year. Just as you say, there's going to be personal changes all over that NFC South, it looks like, and head coaching was, I think so. But again, Brady is the sort of guy, even in New England, he'll make the decision pretty quick. It will be probably in the next week or two. I'd say you may get some sort of release there anyway.
Well, hopefully he does, because I don't want to be looking forward to the next couple of months of will he, won't he at Brady. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, realistically, personnel-wise, are going to have to make decisions as well in terms of the quarterback position on an awful lot of key positions as well. If Brady does go, I think, it's a pivotal decision. So, all to kind of be decided on. Guys, been a great nearly an hour on this podcast this week. But we've plenty to talk about. But may come back again next week to review the AFC and the NFC championship games, and hopefully they're not the blowouts that you two guys predict anyway, that we might have a bit more fireworks in Kansas and also LA next week. So if you want to come back, more than welcome.
Sure. Thanks again, Mark.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. If you liked what you heard in this podcast, why not subscribe to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast on either Amazon, Spotify, YouTube or Twitter platforms. You can also follow me at Hawkeye Sidekick on Facebook and Twitter for the latest sporting opinions, articles and reports.